Every day I left food and small change for an elderly homeless woman near my office and thought it was just common decency. But one day, when I bent down again, she grabbed my hand and whispered, "Don't go home. Stay at a hotel. I'll show you everything tomorrow." I smiled, until I realized it was a betrayal and she saved my life. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and let us know where you are listening in the comments. Her fingers closed around my wrist like a steel trap. I froze, half bent over the lunchbox I'd just set down, and for 8 months, 8 solid months, this woman had never so much as looked me in the eye. Now her grip was surprisingly strong, pulling me closer to where she sat against the brick wall of the Elder Care Alliance building. "You've been kind to me," she whispered, her voice raspy but urgent. "Don't go home tonight. Stay in a hotel. Come back here tomorrow morning. I'll show you everything." I stared at her weathered face, at eyes that suddenly seemed far too sharp for someone who'd been sitting in the same spot on Market Street since last August. My mouth opened, then closed. Around us, the usual Tuesday morning bustle of downtown Riverside continued. Car horns, distant conversations, the coffee shop across the street grinding beans. "Ma'am, I don't understand. Please." Her grip tightened. "Trust me, just this once." Then she released me and turned away, pulling her thin jacket tighter despite the April warmth. Conversation over. I straightened up slowly, my knees protesting. 67 years old, and I was getting advice from a homeless woman about where to sleep. The rational part of my brain, the part that had spent 40 years auditing financial statements and finding patterns in chaos, told me this was nonsense, probably dementia or some elaborate scam. But something in her eyes bothered me, not crazy, afraid. I walked into the office at 9:05, 5 minutes late for the first time in 3 years of volunteering. Margaret at the front desk gave me her usual smile, asked about my coin collection, reminded me about the donation sorting in the back room. Normal. Everything felt aggressively normal, except I couldn't stop thinking about that grip on my wrist. By noon, I'd made my decision. I called the Hampton Inn on Tyler Street from my cell phone, feeling ridiculous. Yes, 1 room for tonight. King bed. Non-smoking. The young woman on the phone asked if I was attending an event in town. "No," I said. "Just need a place to crash." I didn't mention that I owned a perfectly good house 15 minutes away on Oakwood Drive, a house I'd lived in for 32 years, a house where my son, Kyle, and his wife Ashley had been staying temporarily for the past 4 months. At 5:30 p.m., I packed an overnight bag in my car before heading to the hotel. Toothbrush, change of clothes, my laptop. Ashley had texted earlier, asking what I wanted for dinner. She was making something special. I replied that I had a last-minute dinner meeting with other volunteers. A lie. I couldn't remember the last time I'd lied to my family. The hotel room smelled like industrial cleaner and stale air conditioning. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at my phone. 1 call. That's all it would take to go home, eat Ashley's something special, sleep in my own bed. Instead, I ordered Chinese takeout and turned on the television. Some crime drama where the detective always figured everything out in 42 minutes. I fell asleep with the lights on, my phone clutched in my hand. When it rang at 2:30 a.m., I knew before I answered. Gary, it's Tom, from next door." Tom Peterson's voice cracked. "Your house. There's a fire. The fire department's here, but you need to come. Are you home? Please tell me you're not home." I was already pulling on my pants, phone wedged against my shoulder. "I'm at a hotel. I'm coming now." The drive took 9 minutes. Should have taken 15, but I ran 2 red lights and barely noticed. When I turned onto Oakwood Drive, the street glowed orange. Fire trucks blocked the road, their lights painting everything in alternating red and white. Hoses snaked across my lawn. And my house was burning. Not the whole thing. The kitchen and back rooms mostly. But smoke poured from every window, thick and black against the pre-dawn sky. A firefighter stopped me at the property line. "Sir, you can't—" "That's my house." His expression shifted. "You're the owner? Where were you tonight?" "Hotel. I was at a hotel." Even as I said it, the absurdity crashed over me. If I'd been home, if I'd been in my bedroom, if that woman hadn't grabbed my wrist. They let me stand behind the fire truck while they worked. Tom Peterson appeared at my elbow, his face ash-smudged. "I heard breaking glass around 2 a.m., looked out and saw flames. Called 911 immediately. He gripped my shoulder. Thank heaven you weren't inside. Kyle's car wasn't in the driveway. Neither was Ashley's. They'd mentioned something about visiting her mother this week. Convenient timing. As the sky lightened from black to gray, a man in a suit approached. Detective Alan Rivers, according to his badge. Homicide and arson. His first question? Mr. Stone, do you have any enemies? I almost laughed. Enemies? I was a retired CPA who volunteered at an elder care charity and collected antique coins. My most controversial opinion was that the 1909 SVDB penny was overrated. No, I told him. No enemies. He nodded, making notes. We'll know more after the investigation, but the fire captain found accelerant residue. This wasn't an electrical fire, Mr. Stone. Someone did this deliberately. The words seemed to come from very far away. Deliberately. Someone wanted my house to burn. With me in it. At 8:00 a.m., I drove back downtown. My hands shook on the steering wheel. The Elder Care Alliance building looked exactly as it had yesterday. Worn brick, the coffee shop across the street, pigeons on the telephone wires. She was waiting. The woman was sitting in her usual spot, but she'd straightened up somehow. Her shoulders weren't hunched. When I approached, she met my eyes directly. You listened, she said. Not a question. I sank down beside her, too tired to care about propriety. My house was a crime scene. I smelled like smoke. Who are you? Rosa Gardner. I was a private investigator for 23 years. She pulled a battered wallet from her coat and showed me an expired PI license. The photo showed a younger woman with the same sharp eyes. Lost everything 4 years ago. Medical bills after my husband died, then the lawsuits. Long story, but I still notice things. What did you notice? Rosa shifted, leaning closer. Yesterday evening, around 8:30 p.m., I was near the cafe on Tyler Street. People don't see homeless folks. We're furniture. I heard a woman and a man talking. She was blonde, maybe 35, wearing expensive jeans. He was older, 40s, dark hair. They were arguing about timing. My chest tightened. What did they say? The woman said, the old man will be home by 10 p.m. like always. Make it look like an electrical problem, faulty wiring, space heater, whatever. The man said it was risky. She told him they had already paid half, and if he wanted the rest, he'd do it tonight. Rosa's expression was grim. Then she said your address, 2847 Oakwood Drive. The street tilted. I gripped the sidewalk. Describe her again. Blonde, shoulder length, highlighted, about 5'6", thin. Expensive clothes. That coat was real leather. Carried a designer purse, the kind with the double C logo. Ashley, Rosa had just described my daughter-in-law, Ashley. You're sure about the address? I spent 2 decades memorizing details for surveillance reports, Mr. Stone. I'm sure. I stared at the sidewalk, at a crack in the concrete shaped like lightning. 8 months ago, I'd started volunteering at Elder Care Alliance after retiring. Every morning, I'd see this woman sitting here, silent and invisible. After the second week, I'd started bringing an extra sandwich. Then $3 for coffee. Nothing major, just the decent thing to do. And she'd save my life. The memory hit me suddenly. Kyle and Ashley's wedding, 3 years ago. I'd paid for everything. The venue at the Mission Inn, the dinner for 150 guests, Ashley's dress that cost more than my first car. I'd given a toast about family and new beginnings. Ashley had hugged me, called me the father she'd always wanted. Her own father had walked out when she was 6. That hug felt like poison now. Another memory. Kyle at 15, teaching him to drive in the high school parking lot. He'd been nervous, hands white-knuckled on the wheel. What if I mess up, Dad? I'd put my hand on his shoulder. Then we try again. That's what family does. He'd relaxed, smiled. We'd gotten ice cream afterward. When had that boy turned into someone who'd hire an arsonist? Mr. Stone, Rosa's voice pulled me back. You need to decide what you're going to do. I don't have proof. It's your word against your family. I know. She pulled her knees up, wrapping her arms around them. But I'm a witness, and there's something else. After they left the cafe, I followed them. Stupid probably, but my instincts kicked in. They went to a motel on Commerce Street, room 112. Stayed 20 minutes, then left separately. I processed this. Ashley with another man. planning to burn down my house. The insurance alone was $340,000, not counting the land value. And if I died, Kyle was my only child. He'd inherit everything, the house, my savings account, with $890,000. The coin collection worth another $50,000. Motive, means, opportunity. The pieces clicked together like an audit spreadsheet balancing perfectly. "Why are you helping me?" I asked. Rosa was quiet for a moment. "You were kind when you didn't have to be. You never asked for anything, never made me feel small. In 23 years as a PI, I met a lot of people. Most wanted something. You just wanted to share a sandwich." She looked at me. "And because someone should have warned my husband before his business partner embezzled everything. Someone should have been watching. Maybe things would have been different." The sun was fully up now, warming the sidewalk. Normal people walked past us, heading to work, grabbing coffee, living ordinary lives where their children didn't try to murder them. I thought about Kyle again. Not the man who'd apparently hired an arsonist, but the boy who'd cried when his hamster died. The teenager who'd helped me build a deck one summer, working until his hands blistered. The young man who'd called me from college, drunk and scared after a girl broke his heart. Had I missed something? Some moment where he'd changed, where I'd failed him? But then I remembered, 3 months ago, Kyle had asked to borrow $25,000 for an investment opportunity. When I'd pressed for details, he'd gotten defensive, said I didn't trust him. Ashley had sided with him, said I was being controlling with my money. I'd refused. We hadn't spoken for 2 weeks. 2 weeks. Then Ashley had started being extra nice, cooking dinner, asking about my volunteer work, softening me up. The detective's card was in my pocket. I could call him right now, tell him what Rosa heard, start an investigation. But Ashley was smart. She'd deny everything. The man Rosa described probably hired muscle with no connection to Kyle or Ashley that could be proven. The motel meeting could be anything. A woman talking to a friend about the old man could be anyone. I needed more than Rosa's testimony. I needed evidence that would stand up in court, that would break through family loyalty and reasonable doubt. I looked at Rosa. "How much would you charge to consult on a case?" Her eyebrows rose. "Consult? You said you were a PI for 23 years. I need someone who knows how surveillance works, how to gather evidence, someone who can help me prove what my son and daughter-in-law are planning." My voice steadied. "Because if they tried once and failed, they'll try again." Rosa studied me for a long moment. $800 a week. That's what I used to charge for consulting. "Done." She blinked. "Just like that?" "Just like that." I stood up, offering her my hand. "I'm Gary Stone. Apparently I'm the target of a murder plot, and I think it's time I stopped being the target and started being the hunter." Rosa took my hand. Her grip was still strong. "Then let's go hunting, Mr. Stone." Rosa and I spent the next 6 days turning surveillance into an art form. She moved into the Hampton Inn, room 247, 2 floors below mine. I paid for it, along with her $800 weekly consulting fee. On April 17th, we sat in my rental car across from Kyle and Ashley's apartment on Cedar Avenue, watching their daily routines like ornithologists studying particularly vicious birds. "There," Rosa said, adjusting the telephoto lens on a camera she'd borrowed from a pawn shop for $60. "Your daughter-in-law just came out. Look at that handbag." I looked. Ashley was carrying a different designer purse than the one Rosa had described from the cafe. This one had interlocking G's, $2,000 minimum. Kyle hadn't worked a steady job in 8 months. He'd been between opportunities since getting fired from a marketing firm for chronic lateness. So, where was Ashley getting luxury purse money? "She's meeting someone for lunch," Rosa murmured. "Want to follow?" We followed, maintaining distance, switching lanes, all the techniques Rosa remembered from her PI days. Ashley drove her BMW, also a mystery purchase from 6 months ago, to an upscale Italian restaurant on Market Street. She sat at an outdoor table, ordered wine, checked her phone constantly. The man who joined her wasn't Kyle. He was older, maybe 42, with dark hair graying at the temples. Good suit, expensive watch. They kissed when he sat down, not a friendly peck, but the kind of kiss that made my stomach turn. Rosa's camera clicked steadily. "That's the man from the cafe," she said quietly. The one arguing with her about timing. So, Ashley had a boyfriend. Of course she did. Kyle, my son, the boy I'd raised to believe in loyalty and honesty, was married to a woman who was planning to kill me so she could run off with her lover. The situation would have been funny if it wasn't so pathetic. I watched them through binoculars. Ashley laughed at something the man said, touched his hand across the table. She looked happy. Genuinely happy in a way I'd never seen her look at Kyle. Get the license plate when they leave, I told Rosa. We followed the boyfriend back to a modest apartment complex on 3rd Street. Rosa ran the plates through a contact she still had at the DMV. Cost me $40 cash, no questions asked. The car was registered to Stephen Armstrong, age 42, with a criminal record. Fraud and embezzlement, Rosa said, reading from her phone on April 18th. Served 2 years at Ironwood State Prison, released 8 years ago. Currently works as a financial consultant. She made air quotes with her fingers. Which probably means he helps people hide money. Perfect match for Ashley, I muttered. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about Kyle at 23, fresh out of college, so proud when he got his first real job. He'd taken me to dinner to celebrate, my treat actually, since he was broke, and told me he wanted to make me proud. I'm going to be successful, Dad. You'll see. When had success become synonymous with inheriting his father's money early? On April 19th, Rosa got the money shot. Ashley and Stephen at a cafe, kissing again, his hand on her thigh under the table. The photos were clear, damning, impossible to explain away as just friends. But I needed more than proof of an affair. I needed evidence of the murder plot. That evening, I logged into my bank account from the hotel's business center. My savings account showed $890,000, 40 years of careful investing, living below my means, preparing for retirement. It was supposed to last me another 20 years, maybe 30 if I was lucky. The login history made me pause. 3 failed access attempts from an IP address I didn't recognize. April 14th, the day before Rosa's warning. The attempts had been blocked by 2-factor authentication. Thank heavens I'd set that up last year after reading about bank fraud in the newspaper. I ran a trace on the IP address using a basic online tool. It resolved to an internet service provider in Riverside, same one Kyle used at his apartment. The access attempts had been made at 2:47 a.m., 3:15 a.m., and 3:42 a.m. Kyle, trying to access my account in the middle of the night, probably while Ashley slept beside him, dreaming of her new life with Stephen. I sat back in the uncomfortable office chair, staring at the screen. They hadn't just wanted me dead. They'd wanted my money first. Maybe the plan was to drain the accounts, then stage the fire. Or maybe they'd hoped I'd die without 2-factor authentication, making it easier to transfer funds after my death. Either way, the picture was clear. $890,000 in liquid savings, plus the house worth $340,000 after repairs, plus my coin collection worth another $50,000 conservatively. Total estate value, $1.28 million. Plenty of motive to kill your father and commit insurance fraud. On April 21st, I called Kyle. My hand shook while dialing. Rosa sat across from me in my hotel room, watching, ready to take notes. "Hey, Dad," Kyle answered, his voice cautious. "How are you holding up?" How was I holding up? As if he didn't know. As if he hadn't hired someone to burn down my house with me in it. "I'm okay," I said, keeping my voice steady. "Insurance company is being difficult about the claim, and the hotel is expensive. I'm looking for a rental house, something temporary while they rebuild." "That's tough, Dad. Let me know if you need help with anything." "Help?" "Sure. Help transferring my money before arranging another accident." "Actually," I said, "I've been thinking about the will." Silence on the other end. Then, "What about it?" "I want to update it. Add some charitable organizations as beneficiaries. Elder Care Alliance has been so important to me, and I think they deserve something, maybe 40% of the estate." More silence. I could practically hear Ashley in the background, asking what was wrong. 40%? Kyle's voice was tight. That's a lot, Dad." "It's my money, son. I can do what I want with it." Of course you can. He fumbled for words. "You're not even 70 yet. You've got years ahead of you. Why are you thinking about this now?" The fire made me realize life is fragile. I want my affairs in order. We talked for another 5 minutes, meaningless small talk, before hanging up. Rosa was already typing on her laptop. "I'm documenting everything," she said. "Date, time, content of conversation. If they act on this information, it proves premeditation." I nodded, feeling oddly calm. The fear from 3 days ago had transformed into something colder, harder. My son wanted me dead for money. My daughter-in-law was cheating on him and planning to steal my life savings. Time to stop being the victim. Sandra Kelly's law office occupied the 8th floor of a building on Main Street. All glass and steel and expensive furniture. I'd found her through an internet search. Estate planning attorney, Riverside, California, aggressive. Her reviews used words like formidable and won't back down. Perfect. "Mr. Stone," she said on April 23rd, shaking my hand with a grip that could crack walnuts. "You mentioned on the phone that you have a complex family situation." I told her everything. The fire, Rosa's testimony, the surveillance photos, the bank access attempts. Sandra listened without interrupting, making notes on a yellow legal pad. She was maybe 50 with gray-streaked hair and sharp eyes that reminded me of Rosa. When I finished, she leaned back in her leather chair. "This is attempted murder, fraud, and conspiracy. You could go to the police right now." "With what?" "A homeless woman's testimony and some photos of my daughter-in-law cheating. No direct evidence linking them to the arson. The bank access attempts could be explained as Kyle trying to help with my finances. I need something ironclad." Sandra tapped her pen against the legal pad. "You're right. Circumstantial evidence isn't enough, especially against family. Juries don't like to believe children would kill their parents. Cognitive dissonance is powerful. You need them on camera discussing the plot, or documented financial transfers, or direct testimony from the arsonist. So what do? You lay a trap." She leaned forward. "First, we protect your assets. I'll set up an irrevocable trust. Move your savings into it immediately. They can't touch it without your explicit written authorization. And if something happens to you, the trust has its own succession plan. That takes away their financial motive, but doesn't alert them to your suspicions." I nodded. "How long?" "I can have the paperwork ready in 3 days. Cost is $3,500 for the initial setup and filing." "Expensive, but worth it." I wrote the check. "Second," Sandra continued, "you need to catch them planning. If they're desperate enough to commit arson, they'll try again. But you need controlled circumstances where you can gather evidence." "Hidden cameras?" "Exactly. California is a 2-party consent state for recording conversations. But there's an exception for your own private property when you have reasonable belief a crime is being planned. Get a small rental house, invite them to stay, install cameras in common areas. If they discuss anything incriminating, it's admissible." I spent the next 2 days looking at rental properties. Most were too expensive or too large. On April 28th, I found a small 2-bedroom house on Willow Street. $4,200 per month, available immediately. 2-month minimum lease. The landlord, a tired-looking man named George, barely asked questions when I paid first and last month in cash. The house was perfect. Small enough that conversations would carry, but with enough privacy for Kyle and Ashley to feel safe talking. Kitchen, living room, 2 bedrooms, single bathroom. Built in the 1970s, probably worth $280,000 if someone renovated it. Rosa arrived with a cardboard box. 6 wireless cameras, she said. Bought them online, express shipping. Total cost, $1,850. We spent 6 hours on April 29th installing them. 1 in the smoke detector in the living room, pointing at the couch. 1 in the kitchen, hidden in a decorative plant. 1 in the hallway, disguised as a thermostat. 1 in the bathroom air vent, Rosa insisted, said people often have their most honest conversations in bathrooms. 2 more in strategic locations that covered the bedroom's doorways. "These connect to your phone," Rosa explained, showing me the app. "Encrypted cloud storage, motion-activated recording. If they say anything useful, you'll have it documented with timestamps." I tested each camera. The resolution was impressive. I could read the text on my watch in the playback. Audio was clear enough to hear whispers. "Now comes the hard part," Rosa said. "You have to pretend to be vulnerable, confused maybe, a little scared. Give them confidence that their plan is working." "I can do that? Can you?" Gary, these are skilled manipulators. Ashley has been playing you for 3 years. Kyle has been your son for 38 years. They know your tells, your habits, your weaknesses. You need to be convincing. I thought about Kyle at 6 years old, crying because he'd broken my favorite coffee mug. I'd told him accidents happen, that I loved him more than any mug. He'd hugged me and promised to be more careful. That memory felt like it belonged to a different person, a different son. I can be convincing, I said. On April 30th, I called Kyle again. Rosa sat beside me, listening on speaker. Son, I said, letting my voice shake slightly. I moved into a rental house, Willow Street. It's small, but it'll do until insurance pays out, but I paused. I'm scared to be alone, after the fire. I keep thinking someone's watching me. Dad, that's just trauma. Could you and Ashley stay with me for a few days, maybe a week? I know it's a lot to ask, but I'd feel better with family around. Another pause. I could picture Ashley in the background, her mind calculating angles. Of course, Dad, Kyle said, his voice warming. Of course we'll stay. When do you want us? Tomorrow, May 1st? We'll be there. After I hung up, Rosa looked at me with something like respect. That was good. The fear in your voice, the hesitation. You sounded genuinely vulnerable. I learned from watching audit subjects lie for 40 years, I said. You pick up techniques. She smiled slightly. I think they're about to learn that you picked up more than they realized. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept reviewing the plan, get them comfortable, let them talk, record everything, document the conspiracy. Simple, elegant. Probably wouldn't work, but it was better than being a victim. At 2 a.m., I sat at the small kitchen table in the rental house, watching the camera feeds on my phone. 6 empty rooms, waiting. In 36 hours, Kyle and Ashley would walk through that door, thinking they were comforting a scared old man. Instead, they'd be walking into a trap of their own making. I thought about something Rosa had said that first morning. Someone should have been watching. Now someone was, and I understood exactly how to repay them for trying to kill me. Let them destroy themselves while I documented every word. Kyle and Ashley arrived at 3 p.m. on May 2nd, their car loaded with suitcases like they were moving in permanently. I watched from the kitchen window as Ashley surveyed the small rental house, her nose wrinkling slightly. Not up to her standards, apparently. Kyle looked uncomfortable, shifting his weight from foot to foot. I opened the door before they could knock, plastering on a grateful smile. Thank you so much for coming. I've been scattered lately. Can't seem to focus. Of course, Dad. Kyle hugged me, and I tried not to stiffen. This was the same person who'd hired someone to burn me alive. The same arms that used to hug me as a child now belonged to a would-be murderer. We're here for you. Ashley kissed my cheek, leaving a waxy lipstick mark. You poor thing. Living in this tiny place must be so stressful. I showed them to the guest bedroom, the one with the camera hidden in the hallway smoke detector, positioned perfectly to capture anyone entering or leaving. It's not much, but... It's fine, Gary, Ashley interrupted, already unpacking. We'll make it work. That first evening, I played my role carefully. I forgot where I'd put the television remote. It was in my hand. I asked Kyle twice what time it was. I left the refrigerator door open until Ashley closed it with an exaggerated sigh. Dad, you seem really out of it, Kyle said over dinner. Takeout Chinese that I'd forgotten to pick up until Ashley reminded me. Have you been to a doctor? Doctor? Oh, yes, no, maybe? I blinked at him, letting confusion cloud my face. I have an appointment, or had one. What day is today? They exchanged a look. The kind of look that said, this is easier than we thought. That night, I lay in my bedroom with my phone, watching the camera feeds. At 11:40 p.m., the bedroom door across the hall opened, Kyle and Ashley whispering in the kitchen. I turned up the volume on my headphones. Worse than I thought, Kyle was saying. Did you see him at dinner? He asked what day it was 3 times. Perfect. Ashley's voice was cold, satisfied. Ralph owes me a favor. Remember when I caught his mistake with that patient's medication 2 years ago? Could have been a lawsuit. I kept quiet. You think he'll help? For $8,000? Absolutely. He'll diagnose early-stage dementia, and we file for conservatorship. Once we have legal control, we can access everything. The trust, the accounts, all of it. My hand tightened on the phone. There it was, documented, time-stamped, recorded in high definition. What about Stephen? Kyle asked. What about him? Ashley, if your dad finds out, he won't. And even if he does, what's he going to do? Challenge us in court while we have medical documentation that he's mentally incompetent? She laughed softly. Kyle, we've come too far to back out now. The fire failed, but this is better, cleaner. No evidence of foul play, just a concerned family helping their declining father. I made myself breathe slowly. Steady, don't react, just gather evidence. They talked for another 10 minutes about logistics, about finding a memory care facility once they had control, about selling the Oakwood Drive property once it was repaired. Ashley mentioned Stephen twice more. Apparently they were planning to move to Nevada together once everything settled. Kyle, to his credit, sounded uncertain. I don't know, Ash. He's my father. He's a bank account with a birth certificate, Ashley snapped. And you owe $47,000 in gambling debts that aren't going to pay themselves. Do you want those people coming after you? Because they will. Silence. Then, you're right. Okay, we do this your way. I watched them return to the bedroom on my phone screen. The image was grainy in the dark, but clear enough. Kyle looked like he was carrying the weight of the world. Ashley looked triumphant. I didn't sleep that night. On May 5th, I made my move. Kyle and I were alone in the living room. Ashley had gone shopping, probably buying more things she couldn't afford. I was pretending to work on a crossword puzzle, getting deliberately frustrated. Dad, you okay? Kyle asked. I can't remember this word. It's right there, on the tip of my tongue. I tapped the paper. Age does this to you, I suppose. You're only 67. That's not old. Feels old sometimes. I set down the puzzle. Kyle, I've been thinking about my will. He went very still. Your will? Yes. After the fire, it made me realize life's fragile. I should have everything in order. I rubbed my face, trying to look tired. I'm going to make some changes, add some beneficiaries. What kind of beneficiaries? The Elder Care Alliance. They've been so important to me. I think they should get a substantial portion, maybe 40% of the estate. It's only fair, given how much they do for seniors. Kyle's face went through several expressions in rapid succession: shock, panic, anger, then forced calm. 40%? Dad, that's a lot. It's my money. I said it simply, matter-of-factly. I can do what I want with it. Of course, He swallowed. Have you talked to Ashley about this? Should I? No, yes, He fumbled for his phone. Let me call her. She'll want to know. I watched him text frantically. 3 messages in 30 seconds. The camera in the kitchen would catch Ashley's reaction when she came home. She arrived 20 minutes later, bags from expensive stores hanging from her arms. The kitchen camera captured her face perfectly when Kyle told her about the will. She went white, actually white, like someone had drained her blood. He's changing the will? 40% to charity, Kyle whispered. We can't let him do that. Her voice was shaking. Rage, not fear. We have to move faster. Call Ralph today, get the appointment set up, and get your father to sign a power of attorney before he changes anything legal. How do we? I don't care how. She slammed her hand on the counter, making Kyle jump. Figure it out. We're running out of time. I smiled in my bedroom, watching the feed. Perfect. Every word recorded, every incriminating statement preserved. On May 7th, I went for a walk. My daily routine, I told them. I'd be gone about an hour. Ashley's face lit up. Take your time, Gary, she said sweetly. Fresh air is good for you. I walked exactly 2 blocks, then circled back through the neighbor's yard. Rosa was waiting in her car around the corner. They called someone, she said, showing me her phone. She'd been monitoring the house's Wi-Fi, every text, every call logged. A man named Stephen. He's on his way. We watched from Rose's car as Stephen Armstrong pulled up in his silver sedan. He glanced around nervously before walking to the door. Ashley let him in immediately. The cameras captured everything. Stephen rifling through my desk drawers, looking for financial documents. Ashley pointing to file folders, whispering urgently. Stephen taking photos of my bank statements with his phone. Statements I'd deliberately left visible, showing account numbers, but not the actual balances since I'd moved everything to the trust. They're so confident, Rosa murmured. They think they've already won. Let them think that, I said. The fall is going to be so much harder. On May 9th, I started forgetting things in earnest. Not little things anymore, big things. I called Ashley Amanda. I asked Kyle if he'd finished his homework. I left the stove on with an empty pan, and Ashley rushed to turn it off, making a huge show of her concern. "Gary, this is serious," she said, gripping my shoulders. "You could have started another fire. You need to see a doctor." "A doctor?" I blinked at her. "What for?" "Just to check on you, make sure everything's okay." Kyle nodded eagerly. "There's a doctor Ashley knows. Really good. He can see you next week." So, on May 15th, we drove to Dr. Ralph Torres's office in a medical building on Magnolia Avenue. Ashley sat in the back seat, coaching me. "Just answer his questions honestly, Gary. Don't try to hide anything." Don't try to hide anything. The irony was delicious. The office was sterile. Generic medical art on the walls, magazines from 2 years ago in the waiting room. Dr. Torres was maybe 50, with tired eyes and the kind of defeated posture that suggested he'd made too many compromises in his career. "Mr. Stone," he said, shaking my hand. "Ashley tells me you've been having some memory issues." "Have I?" I looked at Ashley questioningly. "Yes, Gary, you have." She smiled at the doctor. "He's been forgetting names, leaving appliances on, asking the same questions repeatedly." Dr. Torres nodded, making notes. He asked me a series of questions. What year was it? Who was the president? Could I count backward from 100 by sevens? I fumbled deliberately on some, answered others correctly. Enough to seem impaired, but not completely gone. The entire time, the digital recorder in my jacket pocket was running. $40 from an electronics store, small enough to be invisible. "Mr. Stone," Dr. Torres said after 20 minutes of cursory examination, "I'm concerned about what I'm seeing. The symptoms Ashley described, combined with your performance on these cognitive tests, suggest early-stage dementia." I let my face crumble. "Dementia? But I'm only 67. It can happen at any age, unfortunately." He was already typing on his computer. "I'm going to write up a formal diagnosis. You'll need ongoing care and monitoring." "What does that mean?" I asked, voice trembling. Ashley put her hand on my shoulder. "It means we'll take care of you, Gary. Don't worry." In the car afterward, I stayed silent while Ashley and Kyle talked in the front seats. They thought I was processing the diagnosis. Actually, I was replaying the recording in my mind, making sure it had captured everything. The diagnosis given without proper neurological testing. The implied familiarity between Ashley and Dr. Torres. The unseemly quickness of it all. May 18th. Ashley presented me with legal documents. "Gary, we need you to sign some papers. It's so we can help you. Manage your finances, make medical decisions, just in case the dementia gets worse." The papers were for conservatorship. I recognized the forms from my research with Sandra Kelly. I picked up the pen, then set it down. "I don't understand what this means." "It means we can help you," Kyle said. He looked guilty, wouldn't meet my eyes. "Just sign it, Dad." "But what am I signing?" Ashley's patience was wearing thin. I could see it in the tightness around her mouth, the way her fingers drummed on the table. "It's just paperwork, Gary. Medical stuff. Don't you trust us?" I need to think about it." "There's nothing to think about." Her voice rose. "You have dementia. You need help. We're your family." I said I need to think about it. I stood up, letting the papers scatter. "I'm going to my room." Behind the closed door, I checked the cameras. Ashley's face was furious, red with rage. She grabbed the papers and shoved them at Kyle. "He's more aware than he's letting on," she hissed. "Did you see how he reacted? That wasn't confusion. That was suspicion. Maybe he's just scared. Or maybe he knows something." She paced, hands clenched. "We need to accelerate everything. File the conservatorship petition anyway. We have the medical diagnosis. Let a judge decide." Kyle's face had gone pale, that particular shade I'd seen when he was teenager caught in a lie, somewhere between oatmeal and old snow. His hands shook as he reached for the papers. "Ashley, maybe we should slow down. Think about this." "Think about what? You're $47,000 in debt? My future with Steven? We're past the point of thinking, Kyle. We're at the point of action. But if he's suspicious, then we move faster than his suspicion." She grabbed her phone. "I'm calling the lawyer tomorrow. We file for conservatorship by end of week. With Ralph's diagnosis, it's just a formality." I watched Kyle's shoulders slump in defeat. He looked smaller somehow, diminished. This was the moment he chose, definitively, finally, to betray me. Not for love of Ashley, not even for the money, really, but because he was too weak to stand up and say no. That weakness was going to cost him everything. Over the next week, I played my role perfectly, confused but not combative, forgetful but occasionally lucid. Just enough inconsistency to seem genuinely impaired, while Rosa worked in the background, digging into Dr. Torres's history. She called me on May 22nd. I found 3 other cases, 3 patients diagnosed with dementia by Torres in the last 2 years, all of them later contested by family members who lost conservatorship battles. All 3 families reported suspicious financial activity after the diagnosis. Can you prove it? Not in court, but it's a pattern, and patterns are evidence of something. On May 24th, Ashley informed me that a hearing was scheduled for June 15th. It's just a formality, Gary. The judge needs to approve the conservatorship. Kyle and I will be there with you. Will I need a lawyer? She laughed. Why would you need a lawyer? We're doing this to help you. I smiled vaguely. Of course, to help me. That night, alone in my room, I compiled everything. The video files from the cameras, time-stamped and cataloged. The audio recording from Dr. Torres's office. Rosa's surveillance photos of Ashley and Stephen. The bank access log showing Kyle's failed attempts. Screenshots of text messages between Ashley and Stephen discussing the old man's money. 47 separate pieces of evidence. Each one meticulously documented, legally obtained, irrefutably damning. I sent it all to Sandra Kelly and Detective Rivers. Subject line, for your review before June 15th hearing. Sandra called me at midnight. Gary, this is exactly what we needed. Every single element of conspiracy and fraud documented in their own words. So we can act? We can destroy them, she said flatly. June 15th, they're going to walk into that courtroom thinking they've won, and we're going to show them exactly how wrong they are. I hung up and looked at the camera feeds one more time. Kyle and Ashley were asleep, curled together in the guest bed, dreaming of their future with my money. They had no idea the future had already been decided, and it looked nothing like their dreams. On May 26th, Ashley started watching me differently. I noticed it during breakfast, the way her eyes followed me as I buttered my toast, calculating, measuring. I'd slipped up the day before, correctly answering a question about what year my coin collection was appraised. A small mistake, but enough to plant doubt. Gary, she said sweetly, you seem sharper today. Are you feeling better? Better than what? I blinked at her over my coffee. You just seem more present. I shrugged. Some days are better than others. The doctor said that's normal with early-stage dementia. But I could see her mind working. 3 days later, on May 29th, Rosa called me from her surveillance post. Ashley just met with someone at a coffee shop downtown. Not Stephen. Different man, younger, professional looking. They talked for 20 minutes, and she handed him cash. How much? Looked like $1,200 bills. A private investigator. Ashley was checking up on me. Smart, paranoid, but smart. I had to be more careful now. The confused act needed to be flawless. I started leaving notes to myself around the house. Take pills at 8 a.m. Lock the door. Kyle's birthday is June 12th. Simple things that a forgetful person might write. Ashley found them and showed Kyle, relief visible on her face. But I knew the investigator was watching. So, when I met Rosa at the cafe on 3rd Street on June 3rd, I made it look coincidental. Rosa, is that you? I said loudly, approaching her table. I haven't seen you since, when was it? Since the office? She played along perfectly. Mr. Stone, yes, it's been months. How are you? We talked for 10 minutes about nothing. Weather, her supposed new job, my volunteer work, innocent, forgettable. But across the street, in a gray sedan, someone was taking photos. I spotted the camera lens catching light through the windshield. Let Ashley waste her money. Let her investigator document me having coffee with a former homeless woman I'd helped. It meant nothing without context, but it meant Ashley was getting desperate. On June 5th, she made her move. I was in the living room, pretending to struggle with the TV remote, when she sat down beside me with a folder. Gary, I need you to sign something. Her voice was gentle, but there was steel underneath. It's a power of attorney. It means Kyle and I can help you with financial decisions when you're having bad days. I took the document, squinting at it. What does it say? Just that we can access your accounts if needed, pay bills, handle paperwork. You trust us, don't you? The document was comprehensive. Full financial authority, medical decisions, real estate transactions. If I signed it, they could drain every account, sell every asset, and I'd have no legal recourse with a dementia diagnosis on record. I don't understand all these words, I said slowly. What's this part about irrevocable authority? It's just legal language. Don't worry about it. But if I don't understand it, maybe I shouldn't sign it. I set the papers down. I should ask someone, a lawyer maybe. Ashley's jaw tightened. You don't need a lawyer. We're your family. Still, I'd feel better. Gary. Her voice went cold. The hearing is in 10 days. The judge will grant us conservatorship whether you sign this or not. I'm trying to make it easier for everyone. I need time to think. She stood up abruptly, snatching the papers. Fine, think, but you're running out of time. That night, the cameras caught Ashley and Stephen in the kitchen. He'd come over while I was supposedly asleep. Actually, I was in my room watching the feed with headphones. He refused to sign, Ashley hissed. He said he wants to talk to a lawyer. Then we go to plan B. Stephen was calm, methodical. I have a guy who can forge his signature. Cost is $3,000, but he's good. Does work for some high-level financial fraud cases. The signature will pass bank scrutiny. What about the lawyer? What lawyer? There is no lawyer. He's demented, remember? If he mentions it, we tell the judge he's confused, imagining conversations that never happened. Stephen pulled out his phone, showing Ashley something on the screen. I already photographed his signature from the lease documents. My guy can work from this. Ashley's face lit up with relief. When can he do it? 2 days, June 7th. Then we have the power of attorney in place before the hearing. Even if the conservatorship somehow fails, we've got backup control. I watched them plan my financial destruction, and something inside me went ice cold. Not anger anymore, not even hurt. Just absolute certainty that I was going to destroy them. On June 7th, I told them I was going for a walk. Instead, I met Rosa 2 blocks away. She handed me an envelope, more surveillance photos. Stephen meeting with a man outside a print shop, exchanging a manila envelope. The timestamp read 2:47 p.m., June 6th. The forger, Rosa said. I followed them, got his license plate, ran it through my contact. His name is Marcus Webb, 2 convictions for document fraud. If they try to use that forged POA, it'll be another felony charge. Good. I looked at the photos, at Stephen's face caught in profile, at the obvious exchange. Let them do it. Let them dig the hole deeper. June 9th, I met with Detective Rivers and Sandra Kelly at her office. I brought everything, printed time-stamped video files on a USB drive, Rosa's photographs organized by date, the recording from Dr. Torres's office, bank logs showing Kyle's access attempts, copies of the text messages Rosa had intercepted through the Wi-Fi monitoring. Sandra spread it across her conference table like a prosecutor preparing for trial. This is extraordinary. 47 separate pieces of evidence documenting conspiracy, attempted murder, fraud, forgery, and medical fraud. Detective Rivers picked up one of the video transcripts. The conversation from May 3rd alone is enough for conspiracy charges. Add the arson, the forged documents. We're looking at serious prison time for all of them. How do we handle the hearing? I asked. Sandra smiled, the kind of smile a shark might give. We let them present their case, the dementia diagnosis, their concern for your welfare, their petition for conservatorship. And then we destroy them. I'll present the evidence systematically, piece by piece. The judge will see a clear pattern of fraud and conspiracy. And the arrests? Detective Rivers will be in the courtroom. Once the evidence is presented and the judge dismisses their petition, he can take them into custody immediately. Clean, public, devastating. What about Dr. Torres? The medical board is already investigating based on Rosa's findings. With your recording, they'll suspend his license within 48 hours of the hearing. Criminal charges will follow. I leaned back in my chair. 6 weeks of planning, of playing victim, of watching my son and his wife plot my death. All of it leading to June 15th. There's one more thing, I said. Ashley mentioned that Kyle has $47,000 in gambling debts. Can we verify that? Rivers nodded. I'll pull his financial records. If he's that deep in debt, it strengthens the motive for conspiracy. Walking out of Sandra's office, I felt the weight of 8 weeks lifting. April 15th, Rose's warning. April 16th, the fire. And now, June 9th, with everything in place. The trap wasn't just set anymore. It was about to snap shut, and everyone inside it was going to feel the teeth. The morning of June 15th arrived with cloudless skies and temperatures already climbing toward 90 degrees. I dressed carefully, gray suit, blue tie, polished shoes. The outfit of a competent, clear-minded man, not someone with dementia. Kyle knocked on my bedroom door at 8:30 a.m. "Dad, we need to leave by 9. The hearing's at 10. "I'm ready." When I emerged, Ashley did a double take. "You look very put together." "It's court. I wanted to look presentable." I adjusted my tie. First impressions matter. She exchanged a glance with Kyle. I could see the doubt flickering again. Too coherent, too organized. But they'd committed too much to back out now. The forged power of attorney was already filed with their attorney. Dr. Torres's diagnosis was part of the court record. They had no choice but to move forward. The Riverside County Courthouse was an imposing building of glass and concrete. We met their attorney, a nervous-looking man named Richard Paulson, in the lobby. He kept glancing at me, clearly confused about why his supposedly demented client looked so competent. "Mr. Stone, how are you feeling today?" he asked carefully. "Nervous. Court makes everyone nervous, doesn't it?" Sandra Kelly was already in the courtroom when we arrived, sitting at the respondent's table with a banker's box full of files. She gave me a subtle nod. Detective Rivers sat in the back row, uniform crisp, face impassive. Judge Catherine Morrison entered at precisely 10 a.m. She was maybe 60, with silver hair and the kind of penetrating gaze that suggested she'd heard every lie and excuse imaginable. "This is a petition for conservatorship," she began, reviewing her notes, "filed by Kyle Stone and Ashley Stone regarding their father, Gary Stone, who has allegedly been diagnosed with early-stage dementia. Mr. Paulson, present your case." Paulson stood, launching into his argument. Concerned family members. Documented cognitive decline. A qualified medical diagnosis from Dr. Ralph Torres. The petitioners only wanted to help, to protect a vulnerable senior citizen from making poor decisions. He presented Dr. Torres's letter, which the judge read carefully. Then he called Ashley to testify. She took the stand, looking perfectly composed, concerned daughter-in-law, tasteful black dress, minimal jewelry. "Your Honor, we've watched Gary decline over the past 6 weeks. He forgets conversations, leaves appliances on, gets confused about dates and names. We're terrified he'll hurt himself." "Can you give specific examples?" "Last week he called me by the wrong name. He left the stove on twice. He couldn't remember how to use the TV remote." Her voice wavered perfectly. "It breaks our hearts to do this, but we have to protect him." Judge Morrison looked at me. "Mr. Stone, do you have representation?" "Yes, Your Honor." Sandra stood. "Sandra Kelly, representing Mr. Stone, and we'd like to present evidence that this petition is fraudulent." The courtroom went silent. Kyle's face drained of color, that pale oatmeal shade I'd seen before. Ashley's composure cracked, just for a second, before she forced it back. "Fraudulent is a serious accusation, Ms. Kelly," the judge said. "I have serious evidence, Your Honor." Sandra opened the banker's box. "Beginning with video recordings from Mr. Stone's residence showing the petitioners discussing a conspiracy to falsely declare him incompetent." "Objection!" Paulson jumped up. "Your Honor, I wasn't informed of any such evidence." "Because your clients are criminals, Mr. Paulson, and this evidence documents their crimes." Sandra pulled out a laptop, connected it to the courtroom's display system. "With the court's permission, I'd like to play recording number 1, dated May 3rd at 11:40 p.m. Judge Morrison nodded slowly. "Proceed." The video played. Kyle and Ashley in the rental house kitchen, illuminated by the overhead light. Their voices crystal clear through the camera's microphone. Ashley's words, "Ralph owes me a favor. He'll diagnose early-stage dementia for $8,000. The courtroom was absolutely silent. On the stand, Ashley's hands gripped the railing, knuckles white. Sandra played 3 more clips, Ashley and Kyle discussing the inheritance, Stephen searching my documents, Ashley's rage when I mentioned changing my will. Judge Morrison's expression grew harder with each video. "Ms. Stone, do you have an explanation for these recordings?" Ashley's voice shook. "They're fake, doctored. He He must have hired someone. The recordings include timestamps and metadata, Your Honor. Sandra handed over a technical report. An independent forensics expert verified their authenticity. These are genuine, unaltered recordings from security cameras in Mr. Stone's rental property. Next, Sandra continued, I present an audio recording from Dr. Ralph Torres's office on May 15th, in which Dr. Torres diagnoses dementia without proper neurological testing, and in which Ms. Stone implies he owes her a favor. She played the recording. Dr. Torres's tired voice, Ashley's manipulation, the cursory examination that no legitimate doctor would perform. Judge Morrison looked at Paulson. Did you verify this diagnosis, counselor? I received the documentation. I had no reason to doubt. You filed a conservatorship petition based on a single letter from a doctor your clients had personal leverage over. The judge's voice was ice. Continue, Ms. Kelly. Sandra presented the bank access logs, the surveillance photos of Ashley and Stephen, Rose's testimony about overhearing the arson plot, the forged power of attorney that Stephen had attempted to file. With each piece of evidence, Kyle seemed to shrink in his chair. Ashley tried to maintain her composure, but I could see her hands trembling, see the muscle twitching in her jaw. Finally, Your Honor, Sandra said, I'd like Mr. Stone to answer some questions, to demonstrate his actual cognitive state. I took the stand. Judge Morrison looked at me with something like sympathy. Mr. Stone, can you tell me today's date? June 15th, 2025. It's a Sunday. The hearing was scheduled 3 weeks ago, on May 22nd, in this courtroom at 10 a.m. Can you describe your financial situation? I have $890,000 in a trust account at First National Bank, established on April 25th with attorney Sandra Kelly. My home on Oakwood Drive was damaged in an arson fire on April 16th, causing approximately $180,000 in damages, currently being assessed by my insurance company. The property is worth approximately $340,000 once repairs are complete. I continued, citing dates, amounts, account numbers, names of every person involved. Perfect clarity, perfect memory. The exact opposite of someone with dementia. Judge Morrison turned to Kyle and Ashley. I'm denying this petition. Furthermore, I'm finding evidence of fraud, conspiracy, and attempted exploitation of an elder person. Detective Rivers? Rivers stood, moving toward the front of the courtroom. Ashley Stone, Stephen Armstrong, Kyle Stone, you're under arrest. Ashley lunged from her seat. This is insane. He's lying. Two bailiffs grabbed her arms. Kyle sat frozen, tears running down his face. Dad, please. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. You made your choice, I said quietly. Now live with it. They read them their rights while Ashley screamed about conspiracy and lies. Kyle just cried, and I watched, feeling nothing but cold satisfaction as they were led away in handcuffs. They processed Ashley, Kyle, and Stephen at the Riverside County Jail within 2 hours of their arrest. I didn't attend. Watching them get handcuffed in the courtroom had been satisfaction enough. But Sandra called me at 3 p.m. with an update. Ashley's already demanding a lawyer. Stephen's keeping quiet. He knows the drill from his previous conviction. Kyle, she paused. Kyle's asking for you. No. Gary, I'm not suggesting you go, just informing you. He's claiming he was manipulated by Ashley, that he never wanted any of this. He tried to access my bank account at 3 a.m. He agreed to have me declared incompetent. He stood by while they hired an arsonist. My voice was flat. Whatever he wants to say, I don't want to hear it. By June 20th, Sandra had updated my will with a disinheritance clause. $1,200 in legal fees to formally declare that Kyle Stone would receive nothing from my estate. The language was specific and unambiguous. Due to his participation in a conspiracy to defraud and harm me, I intentionally and with full mental capacity exclude my son, Kyle Stone, from any inheritance. It felt like signing a death certificate, but he'd killed our relationship long before I signed that paper. The California Medical Board moved faster than I expected. On June 23rd, Dr. Ralph Torres's license was suspended pending investigation. Rosa found the announcement online and brought me a printed copy. By July 1st, criminal charges were filed: medical fraud, conspiracy to commit fraud, accepting bribes to falsify diagnoses. His career was over. The criminal trial began on July 5th. The prosecution had an overwhelming case. My evidence made their job almost too easy. The private investigator Ashley had hired, a man named Doug Freeman, testified first. He'd taken the plea deal Sandra mentioned, admitting he'd been hired to follow me, but claimed ignorance about the larger conspiracy. Mrs. Stone told me she suspected her father-in-law was faking dementia to avoid family responsibilities, Freeman said on the stand. I had no idea about arson or fraud. When Detective Rivers contacted me, I cooperated immediately. Ashley's attorney tried to paint her as a concerned daughter-in-law, but the videos destroyed that narrative. The jury watched the May 3rd kitchen conversation, saw Ashley's face as she discussed bribing Dr. Torres, heard her cold calculation about moving to Nevada with Stephen once everything's settled. On July 15th, the defense called Kyle to testify. He looked terrible, gaunt, hollow-eyed, wearing an orange jumpsuit that hung on his frame. His attorney had negotiated a plea deal, testify against Ashley and Stephen in exchange for a reduced sentence. Did you participate in a plan to have your father declared incompetent? The prosecutor asked. Yes. Kyle's voice cracked. Ashley said it was the only way. I owed money, gambling debts, $47,000. She said if we could get conservatorship, we could pay everything off and still have enough left over. Did you know about the arson? Not until after. Ashley told me later that Stephen had handled it. I should have gone to the police then. I should have... He broke down crying. I watched from the gallery, feeling nothing. This wasn't my son anymore. This was a stranger who'd been willing to let me burn alive for money. The prosecutor continued. And the attempt to access your father's bank accounts on April 14th at 2:47 a.m., was that you? Yes, Ashley gave me his account information. She said he'd want us to have access in case of emergency, but the two-factor authentication blocked me. When that didn't work, she started planning the conservatorship. Kyle got his plea deal, 5 years instead of 15. He'd be out by his 43rd birthday if he behaved. Ashley and Stephen went to trial. On August 10th, the verdicts came. Ashley Stone, guilty on all counts: conspiracy to commit murder, attempted murder via arson, elder fraud, conspiracy to commit fraud. 18 years in California. State prison. Stephen Armstrong, guilty on all counts, with his prior conviction elevating the sentence. 22 years. I was in the courtroom when the judge read the sentences. Ashley's face went through a remarkable transformation. Disbelief, to rage, to something like understanding. She turned and looked at me, seated 3 rows back. Our eyes met. "This is your fault," she mouthed. I smiled, just a small smile, and mouthed back, "No, it's yours." She lunged toward me before the bailiffs grabbed her. The judge ordered her removed from the courtroom. Her screaming echoed down the hallway. "He set us up! He planned this! He's not the victim! He's the monster!" The irony was delicious. The woman who'd tried to have me killed, who'd schemed to steal my life savings, who'd manipulated my son into betraying me, she thought I was the monster for documenting her crimes. Kyle didn't react to his sentence. He just sat there, shoulders slumped, staring at his hands. When they let him out, he glanced at me once. I looked away. On August 15th, my insurance company finally approved the claim. $340,000 for fire damage. The check arrived by courier, and I deposited it the same day. By August 20th, contractors were already working on the house, replacing the damaged kitchen and back rooms, updating electrical and plumbing. Rosa had been staying at the Hampton Inn all this time. I'd been covering her room at $90 per night. On August 16th, I made her an offer. The house has a guest room. Once repairs are done, it's yours if you want it. $2,400 a month salary, plus room and board, helping with my volunteer work at Elder Care Alliance. She looked at me for a long moment. Why? Because you saved my life. Because you're good at what you do. Because everyone deserves a second chance. I paused. And because I could use the company. The house feels empty. I accept. The house was finished on September 5th. $185,000 in repairs, covered entirely by insurance. The contractors had done beautiful work. The kitchen gleamed with new appliances. The back rooms had fresh drywall and paint. It looked better than before the fire. Rosa moved in on September 6th, bringing 2 suitcases and a cardboard box of belongings. Everything she owned fit in the guest bedroom with room to spare. She stood in the doorway, running her hand along the freshly painted wall. "I haven't had a home in 4 years," she said quietly. "Now you do." On August 20th, I'd established the Gardner Stone Foundation for Homeless Services with a $100,000 initial endowment. Rosa's name came first. It was her warning that saved everything. The foundation would provide job training, temporary housing assistance, and basic necessities for people experiencing homelessness in Riverside County. The first person we helped was a man named Marcus, who'd been sleeping behind the Elder Care Alliance building. Rosa recognized him from her time on the streets. We got him into a transitional housing program, helped him get his ID documents replaced, connected him with job placement services. Small steps, but they mattered. On September 12th, a letter arrived from Kyle, prison stationery, his handwriting shaky. "Dad, I know I don't deserve forgiveness. I know what I did was unforgivable, but I need you to know I'm sorry. Ashley manipulated me, but that's not an excuse. I made my choices. I let greed and weakness turn me into someone who could hurt you. I'll spend the rest of my life regretting it. I hope someday you can forgive me, even if I can't forgive myself. Love, Kyle." I read it 3 times. Then I wrote back. My response was short. "Kyle, you made your choice when you tried to access my bank account at 3 a.m. You made it again when you agreed to have me declared incompetent. You made it a 3rd time when you stood by while Ashley and Steven planned their next move. Those weren't mistakes. They were decisions. I'm not your father anymore. I'm the man who survived despite your plans. That's all I can be now. Live with your choices. Gary Stone." I mailed it the same day. Rosa found me at the kitchen table afterward, staring at nothing. "You okay?" she asked. "He was 6 years old once. He used to build blanket forts in the living room and insist I was the dragon he had to defeat." I looked at her. "Where did that kid go?" "Sometimes people get lost," Rosa said, "and sometimes they can't find their way back." On September 20th, Rosa and I went to dinner at an Italian restaurant downtown, the same one where I'd watched Ashley and Steven kiss back in April. The irony wasn't lost on me. We ordered wine, toasted to survival. "5 months ago today," Rosa said, "you left a lunchbox and $3 for a homeless woman outside your office. Best money I ever spent. 5 months ago, I grabbed your wrist and told you not to go home. I wasn't sure you'd listen. Why did you warn me? You didn't know me." She smiled. "Because for 8 months, you treated me like a person, not a problem, not invisible, but a person. You didn't ask for my story or try to fix me. You just shared your lunch." She raised her glass. "That kind of decency is rare. I couldn't let it burn." We clinked glasses. "To decency," I said, "and to justice." The next evening, September 21st, I was in my study, the room that hadn't been damaged in the fire, organizing my coin collection. My 1909 S VDB penny, which I still maintained was overrated, my 1916 Standing Liberty quarter, my 1893 S Morgan dollar. Each coin had a story, a moment in history captured in metal. Rosa knocked on the door frame. "You have a visitor." Detective Rivers stood in the hallway, holding a folder. "Mr. Stone, just tying up loose ends. The arson investigation identified the man who started the fire, a career criminal named Tony Marsh. Stephen Armstrong hired him, paid him $8,000. Marsh is cooperating in exchange for a reduced sentence. Will he testify? Already did at Stephen's trial. His testimony helped secure the conviction." Rivers handed me the folder. "This is the complete investigation file, case closed." I flipped through it. Photos of my burned house, evidence logs, witness statements, Tony Marsh's confession. The final page was stamped, "Case closed, conviction secured." "Thank you, Detective. Thank you, Mr. Stone. Without your evidence, we'd have had a much harder case. Those cameras, the recordings, brilliant work." After he left, I returned to my coins. Each one represented a different era, a different set of values. The 1943 steel penny from wartime, the 2009 Lincoln Bicentennial series, history preserved and cataloged. My life felt like that now, divided into before and after April 15th. Before, when I was Gary Stone, retired auditor and father. After, when I became Gary Stone, survivor. On September 25th, I was playing chess online, a match against someone in Seattle who favored the Sicilian defense. Rosa was in the kitchen making coffee, humming something I didn't recognize. The house smelled like fresh paint and coffee beans and possibility. My opponent made a mistake, left their queen exposed. I captured it, typed "good game" in the chat, and won 3 moves later. The doorbell rang. Rosa answered it, probably a package or neighbor. But then I heard a familiar voice and my blood went cold. I walked to the front door. Ashley's mother stood there, tears streaming down her face. "Mr. Stone," she said, "please, I know what Ashley did. I know she deserves her sentence, but she's my daughter. Is there anything you could do? Any way to reduce?" "No," I said simply. "But she tried to have me killed. She manipulated my son. She conspired with a criminal to destroy my life for money she hadn't earned." My voice was calm, almost gentle. "I understand she's your daughter, but the woman who would do those things isn't someone I can help. I'm sorry." She left crying. Rosa closed the door and looked at me. "You okay?" "I'm fine." And I was. The guilt I'd expected to feel for Kyle's imprisonment, for Ashley's sentence, for destroying their futures, never came. They'd chosen their paths. I'd simply documented the journey. That evening, I sat in my study with a glass of whiskey and my coin collection spread before me. Rosa was in the living room, reading a mystery novel. The contractors had left behind the smell of new wood and fresh possibilities. I picked up my 1909 VDB penny, the one everyone said was overrated. I'd bought it in 1987 for $800, a fortune at the time. Now it was worth maybe $1,200. Not a great investment by any measure, but I'd loved it anyway, for the story, for the history, for the simple fact that it had survived 116 years and ended up in my hand. Some things were worth more than their market value. I looked around the study, at the restored walls, at Rosa's coat hanging by the door, at the life I'd rebuilt from ash and betrayal. Justice hadn't brought my son back. It hadn't erased what happened, but it had given me something better. The knowledge that I'd fought back, that I'd refused to be a victim, that I'd survived. And sometimes, survival was the best revenge of all. I raised my glass to the empty room. "To April 15th, I said quietly. "The day a homeless woman saved my life, and I learned I was stronger than I thought." The whiskey was smooth, expensive, well-aged, like me. And life somehow went on. If you like this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions of this story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the left. Thank you for watching.